Welcome to Walking with Jesus Bible Study. We are going to be in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 2. Oh, my wind just blew everything. Chapter 1, verse 2. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into divers temptations. And I'm going to repeat that. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into divers temptations. Trials of life are numerous, and we must look upon them with joy. It is challenging to remain joyful during burdensome seasons, but our hardships improve our walk. When we experience loss, we become more appreciative of what we once had and see the blessings around us. We benefit from hurting because it gives us the ability to empathize with those who experience the same struggle. Most importantly, trials allow us to place our trust in the Lord. But some of us can't handle it, can't see it that way. And that's where the devil gets them. That's where the devil tricks them. Because instead of running to the Lord for that peace and for that comfort, they turn it and begin to hate God. But that's one of the main things that the devil wants you to do. He wants you to hate God. He wants you to blame God. He wants you to curse God. The whole book of Job is the example of what Satan will use to get you to curse God. What he will use to make you lose your mind and doubt yourself and to doubt God. Because a lot of people think, just like his friends all had that big conversation with him saying, you know you did wrong. Come on now, God wouldn't curse you if you wasn't doing wrong. God wouldn't do these things to you if you wasn't evil. God wouldn't do these things if you wasn't this and wasn't that. And what was the very thing that God came through? He said, who was here when I created this earth? Was it you? Was it you? No. Shut your mouth then, because you wasn't. He didn't say those exact words, but you know what I mean. Okay? And then he said, because Job speaks right. He didn't do anything to deserve it. And see, sometimes a lot of people sit there thinking that all these people, when they go through sufferings, that they deserved it. And when they didn't. You know, when it comes to a lot of deformed people and handicapped people, especially if you go centuries back, even into like 100 years old back, you know, a lot of those people was killed. A lot of those babies was killed. Because they assumed that when they was born that way, that because God cursed that family. That God was cursing those parents to give them deformed child, so they would kill it. A lot of people was ashamed of those babies, believing that God hated them, that he put some kind of curse on them to give them such a deformed child. And it just so wasn't true at all. That's why Jesus made it a point to tell his disciples when they said, who committed the sin when the child was born blind? Was it the parent or that child? And Jesus answered back, neither. It is for me to prove to everybody that I am the I am. You know, it was only because of that reasoning why people would be so evil and would kill all those babies that was born, is why the circus came about. Why the freak show was formed. It was the only way for most of those people to live and to make a living. Was for everybody to do the one thing that most of them got killed for, was to be made fun of and to be poked of. And it's so sad. The thick skin that they had to have to endure of listening to everybody poking at them, laughing at them. Could you imagine? Would you rather have just been killed? Or would you think you could go through life with people constantly laughing at you? But those people, God bless them, did that. It was the only way for them to decide. And how great their reward must be in heaven. To have suffered. Because it says so, also written in the scripture, that those who suffer greatly will have a great reward in heaven. Just like you, without even having any kind of deformity. You know, there's people who live life full of nothing but suffering. And it's not to their fault of their own. There's a lot of people was born into the book of Job. That they was just had nothing but suffering since the day they was born. But you know what? God has something great for them. And how pure their heart must be for those that have suffered greatly to still give kindness back to others. Now there's some that don't do so well. It makes them more bitter. It makes them more hateful. And they just come grumpy and it's hateful people because they can't stand the things that has happened to them. So they hold it against everybody, hold it against the world. See, they let the devil win. They let the evilness consume them with such evil and such hatred that that's all they project is what was put on them. They just projected the very thing that was thrown on them. But great is the blessing of those who does not project the same evil, but instead reflects God's kindness, reflects God's mercy, reflects God's love, reflects God's grace toward those who have done nothing but condemn them and made them suffer and took advantage of them. And even though that those people knew what some of these people were doing, it did not make them weak. They knew what these people was doing, and yet they turned the other cheek. They are listening to God's instruction. They went by Jesus' example. And how great their life will be in heaven. The lessons that we learn from our suffering. So we should be, it says to be in the scriptures, it says to be glad in everything. Rejoice, sing in your times of trouble. Rejoice in them. Be glad in all things. And yes, I know it's very hard to be happy and to be rejoiced, especially when you're in the loss of another one. But the only thing I could say that when you lost somebody, you could be glad in the fact that they no longer have to do any of the suffering here on earth. That they are already up there. They're going to be in heaven. You get to be with them in heaven. That's what you can. That's the only thing I could find that you can, for the reason of why you should be glad when somebody has been lost. Because this world is a crappy world, and the people in it, most of it is crappy. And then by the time we get to the very end part of times, the destruction, the lawlessness, the hatefulness, the evilness that's going to be upon this earth and upon everybody, we should be thankful. Especially all the children that's come up missing and has been taken away from us. Thank God they will not have to suffer the ends of times, the wrath and the rudeness of people. That is the only thing that could be grateful for in their loss, is the fact that all those children are all up in heaven with Jesus. And we can know that for sure, because Jesus takes all the little kids. Now there's a certain age, I don't know what the age limit is, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be like around, I want to say, and like 17, maybe 18 up. But a lot of things in the scriptures, it says 20 and up take the count. So I would assume that would be the number where you would be held responsible for your own beliefs and be held responsible for your own spirit and for your own soul. Now it could be a little bit low that, because I'm not God, I'm not Jesus, I don't make the rules. But I do know that all children and that all the handicapped and just ones whose mind is of like child will be saved. And will automatically, get to, just like Monopoly, we'll get to go. They'll automatically get sent. So we could be sure that we know. So you need to make sure, if you want to be with your child again, to do your part to get up there, because they're up there. But be grateful and make sure that there is something to learn in everything, in every struggle, and every lesson. You just got to figure out what it is so that you don't have to repeat that. And there's a lot of people who just have a lot of bad things happen to them. But they was meant to make it for those struggles. They can overcome it, because God gave you the power to overcome everything that is being thrown at you in your life. for he made that life for you.